Acontecendo a mim.
Para ti, agora não.
Eu é que vou sair?
Sim, tu vais sair. Onde é que está o professor desta sala?
Eu sou a professora.
Tu, professora, não. Onde é que está o homem desta sala? Onde é que está o professor, o líder desta sala?
Machista.
Coisa só uma acontecendo a mim.
Para ti, agora não passo mais de um mariconso.
So that was the trailer of O Derradeiro Passo in English. It's the last step. The film that you're about to watch with our director, Hussein Keshevji, our lead actor, João Miguel, and all our esteemed guests from the Center for Media and Celebrity Studies. In short, it's CMCS. A little bit about CMCS. It's an international network that coordinates academic research and media commentaries on fame. We have been twice in the Telegraph, Vice, Flair, Chatelaine, Global News, Sun Media, among many more. And today we're so excited to launch our International Film Festival, CMCS Wall of Fame Film Festival, that aims to screen and exhibit and honor filmmakers and actors for excellence in storytelling and social issues like human rights, animal rights, environmental sustainability. We're looking forward to seeing who wins this festival laurel and awards this year. Huge thanks to Film Freeway and Stay 32 for supporting us with the awards. I can't wait to celebrate our films that are going to be coming in. But today we're going to start with a screening, and that's the trailer that you watched. And we're going to do that with everybody. I'll let our wonderful moderator, Evie, introduce herself and all our special guests. Evie?
Hi, Samita. Thank you so much for that. I cannot wait to watch the last step. That trailer was fantastic. So you have me on the edge of my seat. I'm Evie. I'm coming to you from Chicago. I have a PhD in new media and communication with some expertise in celebrity culture, reality TV, social media use, and things like that. I'm kind of in transition. I'm trying to move away from academia and into perhaps media industry, but also balance writing my first book on the representations of women in reality TV. So I think that a lot of the things that we just saw in the trailer, I'm going to have a lot of stuff to speak to today. So I don't know if Casey, you want to introduce yourself next?
Sure, thank you, Evie. I'm Casey Lloyd. I'm an actor out of Los Angeles, and me and Samita have, she's invited me on several panels for CMCS, and I've always enjoyed myself, and I am excited to watch Hussein and Joao in this, the last step. Thank you.
George, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Oh, George, you're muted.
Yeah, he's muted.
George, you're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry about that. So my name is George Tsouris. I'm a philosophy professor with City University of New York and filmmaker. I'm producing my first feature film right here pretty soon, Totem Chaser. We'll see when it comes out soon. I'll say that. And yeah, I'm very excited to view other people's and other filmmakers and talk with other performers like tonight. So I'm very excited about this event. Thank you for having me.
Excellent.
George is very humble. He had a film in Tuscany. George, you made a film in Tuscany. That needs to be screened.
Yes. I've made a few short films before also, yes.
We should definitely be watching that next.
Soon.
And Andrea, do you want to tell everybody who you are?
Sure. Hi, I'm Andrea Marshall. I'm a CMCS delegate, and I'm also a feminist artist.
And my work looks at fan studies and fan response to media in all its manifestations, particularly from a feminist intersectionalist angle. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here and meet all this esteemed company and celebrate Samita's film.
Excellent.
Thank you, Andrea. So we're going to have a lot of questions and conversations. And as I was saying before, today is your day. Have as many conversations as you want. I'm looking forward to questions from the audience. So I'm going to be looking at the chat box here and just have a really nice Q&A with our director and our lead actor. So what I'll do, I'll start the film. I can't wait to watch with all the audience and our guests. And if you want to make notes, have questions along the way, please save them for the Q&A after. So let's get started. Sorry. That was the trailer. Let's see the film. Got everything loaded here. I guess this is it. Yes.
Tens que ir, Samantha. Tens que ir. Vai, vai. Eu sempre sonhei ter uma escola de artes performativas. Uma escola de todos para todos. E estive a um passo de o conseguir. Contas. Contas.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin Rahman Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin Alhamdulillah Alhamdulillah Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin Rahman Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin Alhamdulillah. Pois, tudo bem?
Tudo mais ou menos bem. E onde estão os seus estudantes?
Não, nenhum me passou hoje. Desculpe.
De quem é a culpa? Minha? Não, epá, todos os meses. Todos os meses recebes o teu salário. Estudantes. No Paquistão tens talento. Aqui, se calhar tens de voltar para o Paquistão.
Não quero mais trabalhar num sítio como assim.
Boa viagem para a tua terra.
Estas coisas só não acontecem a mim.
Onde é que está o professor desta sala?
Eu sou professora.
Tu, professora, não. Onde é que está o homem desta sala? Onde é que está o professor, o líder desta sala?
Machista.
Tu nem sabes dançar. Sabes que mais? Não te quero ver mais nesta escola.
No dia em que eu morrer, não me levem para perto de Deus nem do diabo. Apenas entreguem.
Luís, como é que vão essas aulas? Suas aulas de teatro?
Vão bem.
Vão bem uma ova. Tu já passaste do prazo. Tu de ator não tens nada. Não tens nada. Sabes o que é que tu és? Tu és uma farsa. Sabes o que é que tu és mesmo, na minha opinião? Tu és só um mariconso. É isso que tu és. É isso que tu és.
É isso que tu pensas de mim?
É.
Eu para ti, agora não passo mais de um mariconso. Sou apenas um mariconso para ti.
É isso.
Sabes o que eu tenho para te dizer? Tu vais acabar sozinho e acabaste de afundar esta escola.
Samantha? Samantha, preciso falar contigo.
Para ti, aqui, eu sou Samantha Costa, a professora de pole dance desta escola. Lá fora é outra coisa.
Samantha,
Eu vou ter um espetáculo no fim deste mês. Por favor, se tu sai por aquela porta, eu vou ensaiar.
não vais, Samantha, desculpa. Não vai acontecer. Está tudo acabado, não vai acontecer. O show não vai acontecer. Quem vai embora és tu.
Eu? Eu é que vou sair?
Sim, tu vais sair.
Já vou estar.
Bom dia, Vitória.
Bom dia.
Estás tão bonita hoje. Chegaste tarde, claro, como sempre. Estás muito bonita hoje.
Obrigada.
Então, o que é que estás a ver? Onde é que vamos almoçar hoje?
Não, obrigada.
Não falas com o chefe assim. Eu tenho a certeza que tens tempo. Vá lá, não te custa nada. Não te custa nada. Não te custa nada.
Idioto Dráculo, impida a mata tem Dráculos da terra.
Somos do tamanho dos nossos sonhos. Eu sonhei e voei alto, ao lado destes que hoje partiram. E sei que o queriam tão real quanto eu. Se o meu sonho hoje morreu, antes quero que me vejam como o causador da ruína. Mas que nunca nenhum deles deixe de correr atrás do seu próprio sonho. Hoje vesti a pele de um homem que nunca fui. Assediei e fui xenófobo, homofóbico, sexista, tudo aquilo que eu mais repudio. Se somos do tamanho dos nossos sonhos, apenas me resta saber: terá sido o meu sonho grande demais para mim? Ou terei sido eu pequeno demais para ele?
Good job, guys. Very nice.
That was great. Wow.
It was quite something to watch it in the theater. I know, Hussein, you had more festival films at the theater. I'll let Hussein speak, and Evie, you can take any questions or ask any question. I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, I think explain like the concept of the film. So the whole film was done within 2 days. So I think we got together on a Friday night. I think it was in maybe 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, where we decided what the film was going to be about, and then we sort of like had a discussion, and then we thought we'll finalize it on Saturday morning. So then we found out which location we were going to do. So a friend of ours, she has a dance studio, and I think this sort of topic, we thought it would be really good to have it like in a real quick decision to get a good location, which was not so far away. And so we chose this location. We got the owner of the studios was very nice to help us, and just on a last minute decision, she found a few spaces for us to work around the schedule of the actual dance studio to film inside there. So I think the filming, we started actually filming about 10 o'clock. So we met at 8 o'clock, and I think from 8 to 10 we were sort of like finalizing the story. We started filming at 10 and we finished around, I think it was about 3 o'clock or around 3 o'clock where we actually finished filming. So actually the whole filming time was within about 5 hours. So from actually concept to the story to the film finishing was like less than 1 day. And then the rest was editing. So I think there was, I think we edited it from, maybe there was, I don't know, maybe 1 hour of footage, and we cut it down to 7 minutes. And from editing, I first started it as soon as I got back home, like on maybe 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. I finished the first drafts the next day about 12 o'clock. And then we called a few people in, João Miguel, Luis, and Daniel, and one more person, Virginia. And we finished the actual, the final edits, everything, the coloring, the sounds, the selection of the music, the voiceover, all the subtitles. We did the whole thing within 2 days. So I think that was the main strong point of this film was the speed at which the concept of the film was done. The filming was done very quickly. Everyone had to find an agenda within their schedule to take that time off and participate. And I think we succeeded in a way that we had intended. There were obviously a couple of small things, like 1 or 2%, which I would have changed if we had more time. But I think it was important for us to finish everything and get everything done. So I think that was the main thing. And I think it was a great experience. I think everyone had a great time. And I think everyone was happy with the final version. So after I finished the first edit, I invited everyone who wanted to have time and wanted to come to participate. So everyone had their word in the final edit. And so I think that most importantly was that the whole team was satisfied with the final result. And it's something that even though I look on something when I see it now, and I haven't seen the film since when it was done, maybe in October, I can't remember now, maybe 3 months ago. And I see it for all its flaws, for all its the beautiful message which comes through with it, and the concept of dreams, which is something for me, it's a very personal theme. And a lot of people I've seen like going towards their dreams, and they cannot realize their dreams, or they just fail just at the last hurdle, which is the story of the character, of the main character in this movie. And I see how we were available to, in such a short space, to involve everyone in the project, to give them a certain amount of involvement, acting involvement in the film, and input into the film, to make into something which I truly believe is with all its flaws, a beautiful work of art.
I agree with that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Everything was shot so beautifully. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about your main seeds of inspiration, because it is a story about being a dreamer. You know, was that inspired by something in your own personal life, or stories that you had been, involved with peripherally?
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, for example, I dance. Samita also dances. Virginia also dances. My girlfriend, Jenny, she's also a dancer as well. And I think this was something when we were coming into that, we felt it was a common theme for a lot of us who are participating. Also, Daniel himself is a guitarist. Also, Luis, he is a poet, so it doesn't have to be dance. It's like performing arts. And I think João is also an entrepreneur as well. So he fit in very well to be the owner of the dance school. So I think everyone sort of just fell into that piece of film, as if the film sort of decided itself even before we decided it. And so for inspiration, everyone had their certain inputs into the film. Like João also had a few sort of pieces which in his experience as an entrepreneur, which coincided with his hotel business. So it's something about dreams, and sometimes things without which we don't have control over. Outside forces can give constraints to the business. And also like the owner of the dance studios as well, it resonated very well with her. My own girlfriend as well, when I showed it to her, she was very emotional. Actually, when we showed the film to the dance owner, she was in a flood of tears, because wow, it just like meant so much to her. And she said, wow, it's as if this is my reality. And I think that's one thing where we touched on the people who we showed it to and the people who were involved. And we all have something that we sort of felt really in tune with the theme of the film.
Yeah, I would like to talk a little bit more about the main characters in the film, particularly the owner, and like what his attitudes were supposed to represent. You know, like on a literal level, I think that we can see that, but I wonder on like a more theoretical level in terms of like following your dreams, his sort of attitude towards women. You know, what messages are we supposed to be taking away from that?
Yeah, I'll let João reply to this, but I'll just say that, you know, you'll see like from João going in there, a lot of it was the way I like to I think I've done maybe 20 short films, and I like to leave a lot open for the actor's interpretation. And so like with João, it was very much sort of like, okay, João, here is what we've decided for the theme, but do it in a way how you see it, how you want to represent the character. Because sometimes if you're making a film and you set too much into the actor and you say, okay, you must do it like this, sometimes they can't give a bit of themselves. And I think João was perfect for this role. And I think he really put a lot of his own experience in his own character. And I'll let João, you know, expand on his interpretation of this question.
Oh, Evie, that's a nice question. And I feel like it's true that there was plenty of room for interpretation, not just for me, like all the actors were giving tips on how I should feel. For example, let's say when I harassed the secretary, shall I feel bad about it at the end, or shall I feel good about it? So am I a mean person in nature, or am I out of character and doing something that I normally don't? And what does this mean for the movie? How can I be relatable with the viewer? This is the type of question that we were asking as we were doing the scenes. And at the end, in my opinion, this actor was this character. He was the owner of the dance school, and he was an idealist, ambitious, with dreams, and he strived for excellence. However, when times got tough financially, he had to fire people, and he didn't know how to, because he didn't have the money to pay them and to just simply fire them. So he created a work environment that was unpleasant. He decided to basically be out of his idealism because he understood that the whole business was going to fall. And within all the stress and the drinking, he ends up treating people badly, being racist, being just harassing his secretary, just doing all types of things that he never wished he would do. But at the end, he did it as a way to not just, because he wasn't able to tell people, we don't have money, we'll have to quit. He couldn't assume his defeat, because he wanted to chase his dreams. He couldn't, he was not truthful. But in a way, he's a flawed human, in the sense that he was not truthful about his failure. And in the process of not being truthful, he ends up hurting people in ways that he shouldn't. And at the end, we want to ask the viewer, was the dream too big for him, or was he too small for his dreams? Like, did he do something? Could he have acted differently? Where was he flawed? And is he relatable? Or just, we didn't want to make it like an evil character, unrelatable, you know?
That's a great, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. No, if I step out of my character and I observe as a viewer, I could relate to it. And it's very tough to relate at that point where you have to have empathy. And, you know, like that was part of the storytelling. Like, how can viewers have empathy with such a flawed character? And coincidentally, I had a very similar experience at a dance school right after this film was released. And there were class-based responses and a lot of body politics from the past reflected, they reinforced. And basically, I'll tell a bit of that story. And I think during the pandemic, a lot of dance schools got affected. And I witnessed that myself right after the film. And basically, this dance school sold me old shoes, which broke. And when I talked about the repair of that dance shoe, then they started to do a lot of cultural bureaucracy and redirecting and exchanging my information with management. And I just couldn't figure out what's going on. I couldn't get communication through, and it was just very simple. And at the end, they wanted more and more money, and which wasn't in the contract. And I got wiped out from the dance school as well. And it was very hurtful because you put your heart, your mind, your body all in trust of the dance teachers and your performers. And so at the same time, I understand that, a lot of the, arts institutions, I mean, they are facing a lot of challenges. And in a lot of our media interviews, we talk about social issues, how they are, evolving in very complicated ways, and how they're represented in the wider tabloid press. Like, are they being represented, well enough? Because this is what's happening behind the scenes. So this story is very real. It comes from a lot of experiences too.
It resonated with me.
So real.
Sorry, go ahead, Casey.
I was just going to say it resonated with me of, Joao, you did such a good job of kind of like playing this villainous, just like vile dude in so many different ways. But like what resonated with me was the inciting incident of like, you're being slammed with bills. You have this dream. You're being slammed with a financial obligation. And then you're also kind of like, you're suffering. So you use the vice of alcohol. And I think can all relate to this in this current pandemic of like, right, things have been financially streaming for everybody because everybody's been kind of locked down and secluded. And so finances, and depending on where you live, certain governments are doing X, Y, and Z. And it's, for me, I've been feeling that with certain projects of like constraint of finances. And then a struggle of mine has been using alcohol as a vice of like tampering down my anxieties and whatnot. And it's easy to see, like, when you have those situations combined, like the demons can come out. And I think that's really a nice thing. And what I saw in this film was like, okay, he's probably not necessarily this truly evil person, but it's really the vices and what's kind of, and so I really like the inciting incident and the.
Well, there's something you're saying there, but actually Joao was very Marlon Brando-ish, because we did the first take of him drinking the vodka 6 times, and he had the shot each time. So he was definitely well into character throughout the whole film.
I was warm. I'm feeling pretty warm. And you're right, Casey. It's easy for the demons to come out when there is financial stress. Like, as an entrepreneur, not as an actor, I've managed a small team. I was the manager of a business in a hotel industry, which was lovely. And I recruited a couple of people, and I really focused on creating a wonderful team that could grow. But with the COVID, I had to fire them. And slowly, things got to the point. It was not from one day to another. There's financial stress, and there is a tendency to look in a small organization as a manager, who is flawed? Where can we cut the cost? Who is flawed? We have to fire somebody. And it's easier to look at the things we don't like in the people in our team when the finances are down. And when everything is good in terms of money, we don't think so much about it. And for me, I treated my staff right, but I had to fire them all. And this is the real life, not as an actor. But I understood in the process how much I could have just blamed and been rude to my staff, who I loved and cared for years. How could that have shifted just because of financial stress if I wasn't kind of kind, I believe. It's not that easy to keep it all together because everyone is flawed. So, and I've been in that situation personally, but I wasn't racist, sexist. I didn't fire people without giving them their rights, but it was still a bit of a painful experience to have to do it.
I bet. Can I ask you guys a question? So I've done one of these 48-hour film festivals a while ago, and it's super fun to kind of have that constriction of 2 days. But they also, and I'm curious if they still do this. I'm sure they still do this, where they have other restrictions put on you guys at the beginning. So you go there, you have certain like restrictions. That way you have to make something completely fresh, and you're not premeditating some sort of short film idea before you come in. Do they do that for you? Like, did they give you your genre? Do they have to give you like a certain line that you had to say in the movie? Did you have a certain setting, like characters? Did you have those restrictions placed on you?
Yeah, we did have those restrictions. I mean, actually, I wasn't. I usually make one short film every month, and the standard of the film, it's always because, I mean, like for example, I like to involve different actors, but I like to like start one project and finish it. So I always make like one movie every month. And then this the 48-hour film festival came up, and actually I didn't really want to enter it because it was sort of like, you know, when you go to a film festival, it's like you have other people judging you, and you have all these judges, and then they have their own, especially here in Portugal, it works with like cunhas, you know, it's like who you know and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't really want to do the festival, but I thought, hold on a second, for all the people that are making films like all these whiles, it's some sort of, you know, something for them to see that perhaps, you know, there is something bigger out there, and to perhaps like get some inspiration to organize your own festivals and stuff like this. So we did have a genre, we did have a line, we did have something else. I think it was an item or something, but I think that wasn't. It would have been something that we would have chosen anyway. I mean, I would have done that film without the constraints of the requirements of the festival, and I wouldn't have changed anything anyway. I think the most important for me, I said to everyone, look, it doesn't matter if, you know, it's not important the festival. What's important is that we all are happy with what we have done, and we can show it to our own like family and friends, and they can give us true feedback about, you know, where it can be better, where it can be wrong. And I think my personal opinion, what I was really interested about hearing, because I showed it to some family and friends, to understand whether they could understand the theme or the message that we were trying to portray. This was the most important thing for me. And I think some people, they saw the film and, you know, saying, well, what did you understand by the film? And then some people, perhaps they didn't exactly understand the message, but I got a lot of satisfaction from the people who told me that, wow, this is what we understand from the film. This is what we understand what your message was when you made the film. And when they could relate to me exactly the message that we were trying to portray, that was what gave me true satisfaction. The last scene when he's walking out of there, and like one of my friends, he's a photographer here in Lisbon, and he's also interested in cinematography. And he was saying to me, "Wow, I'm really touched by the fact that, you know, I really thought this guy was like a homophobic. I really thought this guy was sexist. And, you know, just I understand. I live in this whole second. He was just like exaggerating his own behavior because he didn't want his fellow artists to think that their own dream was unattainable. You see, he wanted them to think that, hold on a second, because the main actor is flawed, that's why he can't achieve this dream, not because the dream isn't unobtainable. Like, you can find success being a guitarist. You can find success being an actor. You can find success doing the things that you want to do, like a pole dancer. It's not because he didn't want them to feel that, hold on a second, you'll never have success being a pole dancer. You'll never be successful as a guitarist. Because he wanted them all to think, oh, this is my fault. And I think that for me, there was like someone, when he said that to me, and like a couple other people could understand, it's like, you know, chasing their dreams and just like being so close to achieving your dream. And then from other factors which are unrelated to your own performance, then you can just fail at the last hurdle. I think with a few people who I discussed with, they really resonated. Like I had a really good friend of mine, and she had a dance school as well. And she just like, after 1 year, she realized, hold on a second, this is not paying the bills. And she had to quit. And then she was saying, well, what if I had continued to do that? You know, I may not have been like a multimillionaire or whatever, but maybe I would have been happy, you know? So it's not like, it's not like always, just like having this trying to portray this message and people understanding that. For me, that was the greatest success of the film, and that was really what motivates me to keep making short films.
Nice.
Wonderful. Can I ask a question quickly? One thing that, it sounds like both Joao and Hussein are talking about here, and certainly that's right on the surface of this film, is this conflict, right? Regarding dreams versus failure versus finances versus art and the creativity. And the interesting paradox is that, the film puts in our face these characters who are, dealing with the failure of dreams, especially with the central character. Yes. However, the film is a success, right? And you all achieved your dream outside of the movie, of course, of making the movie. So can you talk about how you all, Joao and Hussein, have achieved success? Hussein, your work ethic blows my mind to produce a film a month. I find that so inspiring and amazing. So can you help us understand how to push through those failures, how to push through even the financial, especially the financial challenges that so many of us artists have to deal with in order to, find the success that you all have produced and shared with us, shared with the world?
Yeah, I think for me, I used to, when I was younger, I used to work as a figurant on films, and I was in some adverts and stuff like this, and a couple of films for TV. Just as I figurant, not like a main actor. And I think a lot of it was sort of it was okay, but then after a while it was pretty boring, really, because I had my own stories. And when I had my own stories, I talked to a few directors and I was saying, hey, what do you think about this story? And it was I wasn't getting the sort of reaction that I was doing. So I was just knocking on doors all the time. And I just felt it wasn't going anywhere. And so that's why I invested in my own equipment. And then it was not just investing in the equipment, because the thing is, you have to I had to sort of bootstrap everything and just sort of say, hold on a second, I'm doing this. I'm not even doing this for any sort of financial success. I just do it as an artist, like making a painting. So my sort of creative ambition is just to do something, just to get it done, and then finding people to collaborate with, finding actors to collaborate with, finding people who have complementary skills to myself. For example, I just want to make the film. So it's the format which I do it in is like this. Hold on a second. We get together, we make a synopsis, we make a brief script, we get the actors together, who's available on that day, we see who wants to participate, and then we'll make the film around that. So, and that's it's a very, in my mind, it's a limited way of doing things. It's a way of getting things done. So I get things done. So I think even I was talking to a friend of mine here in Lisbon. He's also a filmmaker, and he said, you are the most prolific in terms of quantity filmmaker in Lisbon that I know. I took that as a compliment. A lot of people, then I met one guy and he says, hold on a second, I wouldn't want to scout the locations. I said, if I have to spend my time scouting locations, I won't have time to finish the film. So he was like, I love scouting locations. I said, great, you can be the scout locations. This is Gaston. So he was like, great. And then someone else said, I really want to do something which complements even organizing this, for example, the screening. It's like Samira. I really love working with Samira. She's really amazing, and she's really got really great ideas about what to do with the film and involving different people. And so I like to collaborate with other people, because I'm just focused, very limited on what I want to do. So that's my sort of vision of things. So I hope to keep up this vision, but collaborating with other people who share this vision and give complementary skills to be able to advance and always improving. Yeah, what do you think, João?
Well, George, it's a very interesting question. For me, working with Hussein has been from this project, another project, a fun experience, and it's been terribly fun. And I think this has been the most special thing, is that Hussein wants things to happen, wants people to show up and to be on time, but is not demanding the world. I feel like when we have fun, when we are participating in a role, doing our suggestions, everything can flow. And I feel the times I've been shooting with Usane, people had a great time. And I feel like that was something good for each person, but also good for the final project, because it's so many heads working together. Instead of working towards Usane's vision, we are working together. And I always had that feeling. And I find that truly special. It's of course accompanied with a lot of vagueness. Sometimes, oh, but there's no script. What we're gonna say? And then we have to improvise. It's challenging. So it's a bit confusing sometimes. And we all are confused together, and we all feel intrigued, and like we share more than just acting. We share the creative process, and I really appreciate this about working with Usane. And I feel like that was one of the reasons for the movie to be done in just 48 hours. And another reason is the fact that Usane was just able to edit it marvelously. We had so much footage, and in just a record time of 1 hour, I've seen Usane working in the computer with his software, and it's just like wizardry. So I think those are two important factors, yeah, to do something like this.
Thank you, João. We finally have Australian filmmaker all the way from Singapore joining us. He was watching us all this time and, sending beautiful comments, and finally he's here. And Ian, what did you think of the film, and what is your question?
Oh, I loved it. I'm sorry, it is 2:00 in the morning. I'm just getting my head around things. But I'm loving the way I'm really loving hearing you guys talk about the filmmaking process. I would never do one of those 48-hour film festivals things. I'm too anal for that. I want to take a year to make a film. So I am not worthy, Hussein. I am not worthy. It is my hat goes off to you. But I wondered, I did want to ask this. Where is the access to the character's transformation for the audience, would you say, Hussein? Because all of these things are happening so very subtextually for him. Where do we go down the path with him as he is, well, literally going down the path at the end and leaving the studio? Beautifully shot, by the way. Beautifully shot. And you got some very, very fine performances. But I do just wonder, from a screenwriting point of view, where do you see the transformation happening?
Well, I think, like, for example, one thing which João touched on was something which is also which I'm not, because like keeping this rhythm as well. I mean, João's not the first person. They've got a couple of people that are saying, oh, we're much prepared with the script. And it's sort of like, wow, there is no script, there's like a skeleton script and you just like improvise around it. But I think it's like a lot of people, I think even like a couple of people have told me that we want to work on the script for the next film. And I think that's great. So you got someone who's going to do a script. I think it's really great. For the transformation of the character, I think it's something which is, as I said, because there wasn't a lot of scripts, it's something which was there from within João. I think João sort of like, I mean, even when we were making the thing, when I thought who is, what's the story about and who's going to be like the owner of the school, it was like, wow, João just comes into this character completely from all the actors. Because how you got to understand what we did, we said, who is available on this day? And when I was doing this festival, I think I said, I just want these people to be in the film. So it was literally, it was João, it was Samira, it was, no, it wasn't even Luis, it was Virginia. And I think one guy couldn't come. And then we brought in Luis, and then another guy was pretty much saying, really want to be in. So then it was like, okay. So then we had our own characters, and then it was sort of like, okay, when we sort of like fixed the story, and it was sort of like trying to understand who had this sort of like, who was able to portray this sort of vision. And I know João anyway from beforehand, and I sort of like know a little bit about his background as a person and of his other interests. And I just felt that he had this capacity to be able to improvise in a way which would be able to, I mean, some of the things which João does in that film wasn't scripted. I mean, you see him like when he's like going in when Daniel's playing the guitar and he's just like doing this movement like this. That is not scripted. He's just there, and it was sort of like when we're saying, right, João, you're going to fire the secretary, but just do it in a way which is perhaps not correct. And all that thing came from João himself. Okay, so it was nothing like, João, put your hands on her, João, do this. It was nothing like that at all. Because I know João, and we made another beautiful film with João as well. And João just had this really expressive facial features, and it's just his way of like, the way of his being and the way he moves, sort of like his body and stuff. It's really sort of like, he just does that naturally. So like to answer your question, during like you when you first see the film, you think, hold on a second, this guy is blatantly racist. It's like, go back to Pakistan. Sort of like it sends you shivers down your spine. You think, what is this character? And then you sort of like, then you understand when he's like, when the guitarist leaves the room and his face sort of changes, and you're saying, hold on a second, this isn't exactly, there's something which is not right here, because it's telling him to go to Pakistan, but when the guitarist leaves the room, his face sort of like changes, as if to say, hold on a second, he didn't really want to say that. And that's sort of like when the viewer, if they understand the message, what we're trying to do is sort of like, hold on a second, there's something which is not exactly 100% correct like this, And when Samita is dancing, it's like, I don't want to see you dancing here again, the sort of like the way he sort of like walks out the room. And it's, the scenes with the secretary and stuff like this, you just have sort of like hints there. You sort of like hints that, hold on a second, this is not how it seems. And then when you see him like looking in the bathroom mirror, looking at himself in the mirror, then you sort of understand, hold on a second, this is something which, there's a sort of like, there's something within this film. He's not like a true racist. He's not like a homophobic, he's not a hassle. This is not him. And then he comes out of the bathroom, he's looking himself in the mirror and sort of like closes the door, and he's making his way out, and you sort of like, you hear his voiceover to sort of like the sort of reveal to see what's happening. You just like see him slamming, and when he slams the dustbin, you sort of like clicks in your mind and sort of said, hold on a second, this is the sort of transformation of the how the character really was at the beginning. And that thing that he all did, it was like a sort of like an act fueled or aided by a little bit by the alcohol which he had in the beginning, which he really did have in the beginning, on an empty stomach. So yeah, I think, but you got to understand, like João as a person. I think it's the first time you meet him. You got to understand him as a person. What a wonderful guy he is, and amazing acting talent as well to be able to pull that off. It was just amazing.
He is, and right after he did the scene with me, he said, I'm not sure if it was right after with me, but soon after the film was done, he said, I feel like an asshole. And I realized what a wonderful human being João is actually. Like, I met him before, but through conversations and just on the set, I could feel the contradictions within João, and he said, I feel like an asshole.
Actually, I had terrible dreams. After that.
Oh no, I'm sure.
No, but they were interesting. They were just dreams that I never have, because those are actions I never have. And even we're just actors, what we say actually impacts people, even if it's just a joke or if it's just an acting. So I feel that negative energy coming back as a mirror, and it's a very interesting experiencing to behave like a bad guy actually in the movie. It's
truly, it makes us think, and the creative process of this whole film and many of the films that Hussein does reminded me of what Ian shared at our conference in Los Angeles. Ian, you talked about interactivity quite a bit. You can present that better, of course. But I think the creative process is very well aligned with what also Ian does, and I learned a lot. And then I actually cited Ian in our journal paper last year, and I like this process where you engage the actors as a part of the storytelling. And now that I'm a part of this process, I could really appreciate, because the actors have their voice, which a lot of times they don't. And this is something Evie also talks about in her media interviews. I have spoken as well, where we don't really hear the actor or any performer's perspective, like especially in media representations. What would you say, Evie?
No, I totally agree with you. I was actually hoping not to turn it back around on you, but I wanted you and Joao to talk about your performance together in the studio. How did you sort of navigate that? Because he is playing such a bad guy. And Samita, like, how did you find your voice, like, through that performance?
How much of sexist experiences did you have to draw upon to create the reality?
That's the blunt way of saying what I was trying to say.
Oh, well, I'm from Australia. We do blunt things.
No, that's good. But like, do you feel like perhaps being in that role, Samita, that you were able to channel some of those experiences and maybe find some sort of sense of empowerment through that performance?
Yes and no. To actually go through it, it's very painful. And I had that experience right after the film, but I was drawing on my past experience. Mm-hmm. And I think as an actor, it's very important to show a layered experience of a human being within seconds or minutes. And that's what I was responsible for, because human beings are very layered. And if you could show that on stage or on screen, or even when we have a live talk, that's where the beauty of, the human essence is. So I was just drawing on my past experience, and, I'm actually, I don't know, I hope this doesn't happen in the future where I get stereotyped as a, psycho ex-girlfriend or something, but I'm actually pretty good at that. I think I would be good at horror films too, because I think I have a lot of experience, and that's important for an actor to have life experience, or you go through actors training, which I also started. So I could relate to it, and I hope I did justice to the character. And then, when I had to relive that experience at a dance school right after this film, it was painful. And so I understand also, like, how to have empathy, as a viewer, how to have empathy, and just as a storyteller. So I think being a storyteller also helps. It's very healing, and you have more of a human understanding, I would say. So I hope that answers the question.
Oh no, I think it definitely does. I have another one for you and Joao and Hussein and Casey too, if you want to speak to it, because I think you're kind of touching on these things. But like, as performers, what do you wish other people knew, like the audience or critics, in terms of like your craft and your image, and like what goes into
that? I think that's a really interesting question. I think the one thing I would want an audience member to know is how difficult it is sometimes to embody different characters and different emotions depending on where you are as a human being now. Like I might have had like a character experience that relates specifically to this character I'm about to play, but that experience that I can draw upon might have happened like 15, 20 years ago. And to kind of like bring that about now is a lot more difficult than you might think as a person, as like, just like, I think it's easy to watch something and criticize an actor's performance without having to be a performer and knowing how difficult that can be sometimes.
Yeah, I completely agree with Casey. I think a lot of people, especially when you're, I mean, there are a lot of like filmmakers here, and sometimes there are a lot of people who can, they're very easy to criticize, but if you're not in the arena like making films or being in front of the screen or acting, then it's sort of like, okay, criticize, great. Let's see your work. Why don't I have any work? Well, let me make a show reel. Why don't I have a show reel? Okay, so why are you criticizing? Oh, then you understand. Hold on a second, But then the thing is, I think I feel a lot of empathy from other filmmakers and from the other actors. And then when they say something and they can give feedback, and from feedback from somebody who's actually doing things, who's actually in the arena, who's open to criticism for other people, And I think these are the people who I respect and get their feedback, and for me to improve as a filmmaker as well. And so I think these are the most people who I listen to are all the people who are in there doing the same sort of things or trying to achieve the same sort of things which I'm trying to do. Because it's so easy to say, to look at somebody else's acting performance and you say, well, they're rubbish. If you look at the film, I don't like it at all. Great, okay, well, let's have a look at what you're doing. And I can show what I'm doing, and they can say, wow, that's really weird. And I think, wow, that's great. That's what I wanted to say. So, yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, Andrea, I spoke before. After you.
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you. I just had a question for our esteemed company. When I saw this movie, the first thing I thought of was being a very young teenager reading Jack Kerouac's The Subterraneans. And I was immediately called to this idea of, masculinity, sort of masculinity on the inside as being this vulnerability, and then artistic expression as chaos, dysfunction, a manifestation of insecurity. The dream becomes the performance, essentially, and the performance is setting fire to everything you've dreamt. And I really gutted me when I saw the movie and I saw how this manifests, because in a way I was thinking, especially if I'm gendering it a little bit, as a female or feminist watcher, I'm not sure I want to empathize with this person so much, but I can relate to the loneliness on the inside too. And I can relate to the veneer because we all project them, don't we? In some way or other, especially when we're confounded, confused, feeling oppressed by life, and it manifests very quickly and sort of without any preamble. And that really gutted me. So I think the movie really spoke to me on that level.
Thank you, Andrea. I
You're
could
welcome.
say just a few words, but I'll let the panelists speak to it. I would say, from my recent experience, I had so much exclusion, and it has been very interesting. A lot of achievements that I had were on days of loss, and that's not too long ago. And I would just say that as a storyteller, I learned empathy, but I'm still a human being, when I hit an experience. So the human side of me feels anger, it feels sadness, and then I have my storytelling cap on, and I think of it as a story to tell, because these are stories that are not represented in tabloid press, and that's what I end up talking about. And I don't accept it or I don't agree with it all the time, but I develop understanding, and even femininity is performed in very contested spaces, whether you have makeup or you don't have makeup. But I think the more honest we can be, of our performance in these contested spaces, the better dialogue we can have, because, especially with the pandemic, I feel like a lot of gaps have widened and there's less and less dialogue. And, it's like one extreme or the other. And our goal is to progress. And that's why I love progressive arts. So that's the only thing I would have to say. But I'm looking forward to what George and Ian and Casey and Hussein have to say about this.
Oh, Ian, you wanted to say something first. Go ahead.
I want to say so many things, but
I know. Tell me about it, right?
But I'm just I'm loving hearing you all talk about this film. This is what I really want to say. When you see such a short film and you see such commitment from every single performer, and when you see a mise en scène which genuinely reminds one of Cahiers du Cinema, I gotta tell you, I'm impressed. Like, I'm really impressed. And like, I never want to get on Samita's bad side. I honestly, like, I love having you as a friend. Please, but it was kind of like, it was kind of a classic, almost Rita Hayworth kind of introduction for your character when you spun. When the hair spins, the way Hitchcock captures the kind of animal quality of human beings. I thought that was just fantastic. And your angles are they're unconventional, and yet you have a style, Hussein. This is what really turned me on to the film, and I'm so intrigued. I want to see chapter 2. I want to see what he does when he gets around that corner. And I have to say, Joel, great choices. Great choices. Your gestural life, especially because coming from a country in which people are too frightened to make any gestures whatsoever, and they don't open their mouth because the flies will get in. To see someone from a passionate country like Portugal make the choices that you did, I was really impressed. I think you're a very, very fine actor, and you are ridiculously good looking. So, like,
oh, man.
be one of my films.
I appreciate it so much.
I hope that wasn't inappropriate. Was that inappropriate?
One thing that I really wanted to say is, piggybacking off of Ian's points too, of just this, what I really got out of Ian's point just now is the power of cinema. The power of cinema and the power of, the moving image to transmit to us these, especially in the 21st century, in this 2022 that we're in, these complicated ideas, very complicated ideas. So I've heard a lot of people say things like, well, I can't relate with Joao's character because XYZ, right? He's so mean, and not me. I'm never that mean, right? But that was the brilliance, I think, of Hussein's and Joao's and even Samita's choices here is at the end, we get Joao's apology or his confession, if you will, right? At the end of the film. And that's what I loved about it, because what it really reminded me of is George Yancey's philosophical ideas regarding race and things like this, where, Andrea suggests, well, I really struggled with these identities or identifying with the protagonist here. But, Yancey will try to remind us that, wait, that's all of us. We all have that racism in us, especially when people are like me and Casey and Evie and Andrea a little bit more. And what I mean by that is, the color of our forearms. Because we all have, Yancey will remind us, that racism, that is just embedded from society. And of course, I don't want to call myself racist. Of course, I don't want to say that, oh, I'm racist. However, this does manifest in different ways. And that was the brilliance of Joao's and Hussein's filmmaking decisions right here, is to remind us in these ways that, these philosophers of race will make so complicated. And, they have books where people will say things like, oh, but we're all racist inside. And my first instinct is, not me. Not me. I'm not racist. No, not me. I'm not feminist. I love all women. I love all homosexuals, right? But the brilliance of this movie in such a short film, to Ian's point, right, is that at the end, it all hits like a ton of bricks. Oh, yeah, that could have been me. And that would have been me. And I've done that before. And I've gotten angry and said things out of turn before because of, so many conflicting challenges that we face. And so I really applaud all of you on this film for really... in such a short film, in such a simple film, so quickly too, made in 48 hours, to transmit these complicated ideas that we all are sexist, we all are racist, we all are homophobic in certain ways. Stand up to it, acknowledge it. And then I love Joao's, how Joao leaves us with that confession and apology. That was just so beautiful. So beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you so much, George. I believe the construction of the main character, I think it was a construction of all the actors. All the actors contributed with some tips, some ideas all along. So it's me, but it's not me. It's the whole crew. It was maybe like 7-8 people. And it's a very diverse group. So we have people from Germany. We have people from Hungary, from Mozambique. We are from Portugal, from Portugal. So we are from Canada. So from everywhere. And men and women, different ages. And I think we all had, like most of us had international experiences living out of our country. And we can relate, and it's an important message to us to deliver what we were doing. And I think that was an extra motivation to make it work, because it was not only for the movie, it was also a message that we all wanted somehow to come across. For example, the guitarist, he's from Germany, and he's pretending like he's from Pakistan and he's being discriminated, but his dad is actually from Pakistan, living in Germany. So he also can relate to that. And he gave a lot of input also on discrimination, on how we would approach the story, because we went home to sleep on this after we got dealt our theme, our genre. We all went home to sleep and have our own ideas. Hussein left it absolutely open for all of us to bring ideas, and he would evaluate, but he wasn't set on his own vision or that we have to follow his lead. And I think this opened everybody's creativity, even during sleep, not just when we were working together. So I think all of that really prepared us for a very nice teamwork for that weekend.
Yeah, I think the storytelling process had a life of its own, just like a book would have over time. And I really felt, being, included. It was very much a part of, what we study, participatory culture. And I think it would be nice to have more and more of that. And I would, really encourage, everybody to, use, their platform or their tools, to create and tell a story and not be intimidated by tabloid press and celebrity culture, selling, what it means to be rich and famous, because art happens, as Andrea also knows, as a full-time working artist now, that it happens at the craft level, on the ground. And we draw from our human experiences, and art is just human. It's, it has, you don't have to elevate it to some godly level that is unachievable. And I hope, films like this actually empowers, and that actually empowered me to launch the film festival, the CMCS Wall of Fame Film Festival, where we could honor and connect more and more filmmakers and actors, as role models, because they all have a voice. And I want people to consider that and even create video essays or, montage of photography and share. And I felt compelled to do that because I don't see a lot, but our filmmaking process really encouraged me to consider that. So I'm really looking forward to how that translates. And actually, before I forget, I have a beautiful memory from the cinema theater, which I would love to share. And I don't know, I'm sure, like people who are in film studies and they're, studying spectatorship, what it is like to be in a theater and what it is like to digitally mediate that, which I'm about to do right now for a couple of seconds. It's interesting. So I'll just take a moment to do that. It's us at the cinema theater. So let's see how this works.
E realmente acaba por haver ali um centro sobre aquele diretor. Ok, isto vai centrar aqui. Por isso nós temos talvez no fim. Isso é uma realidade. Cada vez é por isso que as pessoas querem.
That was cool.
That was really cool.
I would love to watch films together. That would be so nice, and I'm just really, really fascinated by and really admire filmmakers and actors who commit their whole life to tell cinematic stories. So I want you to know that I'm very, very proud of you. And I'm so honored that, we could actually watch more films together, hopefully.
May I ask,
Sure.
Samita, do you think, and perhaps Hussein also, in looking at the future of this particular film, you mentioned just now participatory culture, and I'm wondering if the forum that you've set up as a film festival can also harness some of the commentaries that are out there and actually then feed that back to Hussein, to whoever filmmaker is, and there's the next installment. I mean, what do they want to have happen to the character? And it strikes me that the vehicle you've got here would be actually excellent for that.
I would love to hear from everybody who is practicing or studying spectatorship and film festivals, especially in digital formats, what that would mean for, the generation that we have, very social media savvy, and how they can participate. So I do have, my initial thoughts, but I would love to hear from everybody here. Having a film festival online, and what would that mean, as being a part of a participatory culture.
That's why I like collaborating with Samita. I'm very limited on what I do. I just like to, just to make the film and get it out there. Everything else is very, very limited in everything. That's why I really like Samita's always like with these really great ideas, and I think it's really good to have that sort of the vision to be able to organize something like that. So I'm very, very happy to collaborate with you, Samita.
Thank you. And it's actually not completely online. I mean, we do want to showcase a lot of work online till we get to the festival date, which is it is October 1st. October 1st, it's a Saturday, and it's going to be at a pop culture cafe in Lisbon that has David Bowie books and David Bowie music. It's a David Bowie fan, Ian.
Why, yeah. My book will probably be available by that time. So, yeah, great. Yeah.
Look at this little surprise.
I meant the Bowie book, but you've read that and you're still talking to me? Oh my God. Fantastic.
And I want to feature everybody's books and posters because I just admire. But this particular film festival, it is hybrid because it's both online and it is in person at the Pop Culture Cafe. It's called Chasing Rabbits, and just a beautiful progressive arts cafe. But till we get there, we'll have a lot of screenings and exhibits. So the film festival for me is on right now because we are doing it. We are watching films together. And what it would mean to have it online with direct participation, I'm really looking forward to hearing from everybody. And what would you like to see?
I mean, I kind of like this format where a bunch of people watched it over Zoom because I had a film recently. I mean, we've been in this now 2 years, right? A film in the first year that hit a festival. And it was the way they did it was kind of lonely. You just it based on audiences what they want, right? But basically you just kind of turned it on, you watched it from your screen, but there wasn't an audience. And so it just felt like you were kind of watching a Netflix film or an HBO thing or whatever. And then there was no feedback. Kind of like what Ian was saying, like what is that challenge of getting that feedback back to the people involved in the project? But with this sort of format, I feel like you have little hubs of like audience members, because then you can also hear, like if you have a comedy, ours was a comedy, you'd hear where the laughs are, you hear where things don't quite land. And so I feel like, and so that's why the theater is so great, but it is a challenge of like, all right, well, how can you have good participation in an online format when we are in the middle of a pandemic, and so I like this format, so you could have this kind of roundabout talk.
Well said, Casey.
I have a question for all of you, actually. I was curious about this, listening to you guys, to us talk all this last hour. When you're mired in creative processes, whatever that is, writing, thinking, drawing, acting, directing, do you take your audience with you, and who do you expect them to be, and what do you expect them to, I guess, how do you expect them to react to you? Is the reaction part of the process?
I mean, for me, when I'm making a film, I mean, this might sound a little bit selfish, but I don't really think about the audience. I think more about the people who are participating in the movie. For me, the success of the movie is not based around what the people outside really think. It's more about the people who are involved in it. It's about portraying the message which all the participants contribute to. Like, for example, I think it was mentioned by Samita, also João, in this film that we made together. Let's say there were 6 participants, but I think all you've seen from the film, you've just seen what they did on screen. The German guy with the Pakistani father, he was the one who came up with the story of the film, so he follows his story. Even small things like filming behind the fan, it wasn't even my idea. Somebody said, "Look, there's a fan there. Let's do something behind there." The editing, I think I did the first edit to finish about 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, and then from 1 till 7, we were doing a second edit with about 4 or 5 of the people who participated. And I also learned from them, because they said, "Look, I remember we filmed this scene and we need to put it in here and we need to change this bit here." So everyone had part in the creative process. It's a shame that we don't have participants of some of the other actors. Obviously, they weren't main actors, but Virginia, she's really opinionated and she's really passionate about things. I think you can see it from the way the way she speaks and she dances. Luis, he was really helpful as like an assistant director, setting up the scene. So to answer your question, the main important thing for me is when I'm making a film is, are the people who I'm making the film with, are they happy? And if they're happy, then that really makes me content. From what people who they show it to, or who I show it to, or whoever may see the film, because these are independent films, it's more of a secondary nature. Perhaps that's a selfish way of seeing things, but that's the way I see it.
Thank you for your detailed candor. It's very revealing and really, it's very arresting too. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and Andrea, I think that's like the best question. I wrote it down so that we can remember it for future.
Oh, you're very kind. I'm curious. I'm sorry, I'm trying to pick everybody's brain, but I'm really curious about your processes and how you do what you do.
Yeah, and no, Hussein, I agree with you. I don't think that it's necessarily selfish. I'm trying to, I just wrote like a draft of the first 2 chapters of this book that I'm trying to get out there. And as writing it, I'm thinking of like my imagined audience. I'm imagining who I think they will be. And then I can't tell if like, okay, with each sentence, I'm thinking too hard on that. And like, is this limiting me? And like, should I just be myself and convey the ideas that I want? Because you never know who your audience actually is, like who's consuming.
Oh, yeah.
And so
that's a really good point, Evie.
Yeah, it's such a good point to make. And
yeah, I think sometimes like some films, especially commercial films, they're quite formulaic. You got to have a sex scene so you can capture this sort of audience. You got to have like a romantic interest, so you capture this audience. You got to have someone who is, looking at certain sort of format, so they can appeal to this sort of audience. But I think that's what's the beauty of independent filmmaking, because you're not doing that. You're free. You're completely open to do it exactly the way that you want to do it, without thinking, okay, I have to appeal to this sort of audience because I need to sell. I need to sell to this audience. I need to sell to that audience. I need to have more people interested. I think that's the beauty of independent filmmaking.
I think you just hit on that so well too. That's why independent filmmaking is so necessary. Because Andrea, people like you and me who study like fan cultures and whatnot, like a lot of the time when I come at it from like a fan studies perspective, it's like, well, this media really didn't listen to the audience. You know what I mean? So there are different points in time. If it's for pop culture, maybe they should be paying attention to the audience because, well, they're trying to make money, but also they're trying to tell the stories the audience wants to hear. Whereas independently, you're trying to convey a different message, your own message.
Exactly. And we always think like the deconstructionists, right? Like the act of reading, the act of viewing is the completion of a thing, but really it's a journey. It's an ongoing journey. It never stops.
Yeah.
It's impossible not to listen to this without thinking of Adorno and the concepts that what you're doing with the film that I've just seen is you're allowing your audience to dream into it, and that's a beautiful thing. Hussein, you remind me of John Cassavetes. You know, I did my thesis in John Cassavetes, and he said he only ever made his films for his friends, and all his friends, of course, were in the film. It was like making a film to him was like having a big spaghetti picnic in the kitchen. But may I chime in here, Andrea? Evie, just springboarding off Evie's point, there is a concept that I just adore, and that is from Michael Chekhov, and that is the concept of the imaginary audience, which is exactly what Evie's talking about. We all have a bicameral mind. So as passionate as you can be in your subjectivity when you write, there is also this part of you that's going, well, I'm looking at myself from the outside. And that should be aligned almost in a Jungian sense. And Chekhov was very Jungian, should be aligned to the imaginary audience. They're thinking something. It might not be what you're thinking, but there's a really interesting tussle that happens between the writer and the writer's superego, if you like. That he speaks about in to the director and playwright. It's a beautiful concept. Anyone know it? Anyone come across that? Have a read.
Definitely want to have a read. Thank you.
One thing that I find fascinating with Husseini's response to that, and even Andrea and Evie's questions, is the fact that we live in 2022 right now, and the audience is so different in 2022. And not only is the audience different, but the means of production are very different today, such that Husseini can make a short film every month. Right, that I can make my feature film, that Samita and Casey and the rest of us can explore our artistic creativity in 2022. I for one, feel ridiculously fortunate to be alive right now because, in filmmaking, I love my Cassavetes too, and I'm thinking, how the heck did they do this? 50 years ago, right? I would be hopeful.
16 mil camera,
exactly. And today, just with the democratization of the means of creative production, we can all have that, and thus, I really am in tune with Husseini's response, which is, listen, the audience. I'm doing this for everybody else, and even the Cassavetes. We're doing this for our friends because we know that there's films that we don't get to see. We want to make the film that I want to see. And my hunch is, especially with this film, it'll find the audience because, as Evie said, the role of independent cinema today is that we get our own voices, and we are so much more able in 2022 to express our voices, our unique voices, in a way that, I would have been hopeless and constrained and almost voiceless even 20 years ago. Forget 50 years ago and 60 years ago, right? So I feel so fortunate that the audiences are. Do we need to think about the audiences and the money right now? The audiences will come because of the fact that we have our unique voices, and I don't think, Husseini, that you're that odd and that unique. I think somebody wants to see your movies, right? And the same thing for the rest of us is we know that there's the audience out there, and we're so fortunate, I believe, to be alive today such that we can make our voices heard, and the audiences will discover it somehow, right?
Where did you
we have so many avenues to share with our audiences and to find audiences, which is, ridiculously fortunate, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Especially when you put something out there. I mean, for me as well, it's always like trying to find new people like who are willing to sort of like help sort of build to make things better. Because I feel like as from my first film to this film, I just feel like now I can count on maybe 25 people who I can just, like, if I'm making a film now. Before, when I first started, it was like one person. Okay, I got one actor. That's great. Okay, but then when I started making movies, and then slowly, like, I don't even like talk to that many people in the film community. It's just like, I see someone who I feel can be sort of like, can be helpful in what I want to do, that we're going on the same path, that we have the same vision. So from going from that one person to knowing like 25 people that would be able to help in creating something, and people would have like complementary skills. I have people, they see my work, or I don't even know, and they send me a message and they said, oh, we got a script and we want to do something. It was this thing which I used to do when I didn't have my own producing. I used to reach out to other directors, and now I'm being in that position. And, I don't want to be the asshole, who just like rejects everything. So it's sort of like explaining about how I work and process which I work with, and to find people. And I think that's one of the main concepts. And I think it's going to get better as the time goes on, finding more of these people with complementary skills to be able to create more, and having people with different visions. Like, the point that Andrea said now, what do you think of the audience? And it never really came to me before. I never really thought about that. What are the audience thinking? Maybe the other people who I'm collaborating with when we're making the film, maybe they're thinking about the audience, and that's helping in that process. But it's quite interesting, because I never really thought about that. So I think that's what the great thing about, as you said, it's more available for people to make films now with a new technology, the lower cost of entry to making films, and just by churning out and making movies which resonate with me, and then finding more people to collaborate with, more people who can help with other sides of production, other sides of marketing, introducing new actors, introducing new ways of doing things. I think that's a process on the path that perhaps every independent filmmaker is on the way to do, because everyone wants to improve their skills, to improve the quality of the people that they're working with, so we can sort of like grow together, you see.
Yeah, and also as a writer and an actor, I feel that imagined audience is there, because I was part of that audience once upon a time. And right now, as a storyteller, I ask myself, what's missing in that, public sphere, what Habermas introduced us to, that public sphere, what is missing? So while it's so important to have an artist's voice, and to just be, free enough, have that freedom of speech, I do think about that imagined audience. What's missing? How can we bridge gaps? And that's why I started my conference series, Bridging Gaps. And
that's right.
That one.
Yeah, so that's how many of us met before and after. And it's just a very intersectional, interdisciplinary space. And I feel, space is very important. We think about who is going to be our audience. I feel very grateful that we have such a, fantastic, world-class community. And part of that community is really and truly space. So what kind of space are we part of? What are we creating? So when I think in terms of space, I think I less think about audience. And yes, the audience will come in. And like Hussein says, like, George, Ian, you're all saying create more. And my art philosophy is, which I shared with George and Casey before, it's a reflection of life. Art is a reflection of life. So design your life in a way so that art can happen. And when we did this film, I believe that the art reflected the lives that we committed to. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened, I guess. So design that good life. George speaks about the good life. That stayed with me. That goodness of life. Yeah.
That's great.
That's why you've got such a great bunch of people around you to meet you.
That's right.
And we are, of course, in the audience that you talk about right now. We are in the space We are
in
the
this
extended space of the film. So yeah. Hey, speaking of which, I've got a suggestion. The next time you run one of these, how about you run it at 3:00 in the morning in Lisbon?
Yes.
I'll tune in at lunchtime. I must, on that note, it is 3:30 in the morning. I've got to get to bed. I've got a meeting in the morning. I would love to sit and talk all night, but thank you so much for inviting me in, Samita and Hussein and everyone involved. Congratulations again on your film. I hope to meet you all in person one day.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your participation.
Thanks very
Nice
much.
to meet you, Ian.
Nice
All
to
right,
meet
then.
you, Ian.
Good night,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Nice to meet you.
Night.
So any final thought while Ian wraps up? And it's time is flying. I think it's 8:00 here in Lisbon.
Can I ask one final question? Like just
Yes.
like a quick response, but do you have any advice for future dreamers, creators, artists, that sort of thing?
Yeah,
I want to
think,
hear from everybody. This is an important question, and I think everybody has something to say.
Yeah, I think I mean for me is just do it. You know, I think a lot of people sometimes they think about too much and whatever reasons they can't do it. Instead of focusing on the reasons why they can't do it, is just find a way to do it. I think when I first started with my first film, literally I hardly knew anything, and I was carrying around this gimbal for the Mosaic 2, and I was walking around this gimbal and I didn't calibrate it properly, and the motor was making a great noise. And so like the main actor, he was a great guy, a really good friend of mine, and he organized he put together like the actors in the scene and everything. And I was walking around, this gimbal was making this great noise, and I was just trying to pretend that it was normal, you know. It was like just a normal would understand. And the thing is, like, you can only get better if you're doing things. And even like by making those mistakes and all the, you know, you reach out to people, and especially when you haven't done anything, you've got nothing to show, people are less willing to participate. But if it's something that you really believe in and something that you really want to do, you know, you just like put like one foot in front of the other, and you'll find one person or you'll find two people who will help you to achieve what you want to do. And if they have the same vision, and then it's like a snowball going on and on, whether it's photography or whether it's cinema or whether it's art or whatever it is. It's just like putting that first step forward and just keep going and going through all the walls that people will put up to you for whatever the reason they put it up to you, because they don't believe in what you're doing, or they don't have that positive mentality because they just, you know, trying to put barriers towards you. It's just like, just go through all the barriers. And if you really believe in what you're doing, you're really passionate about doing it, and you really love what you're doing, then I think you'll find a way to do it, and you'll find a couple of people to help you on your mission.
I let go many family members and relatives and school friends. I know this is live, and if they're listening to this, unfortunate that, you know, they're still listening, but I committed, you know, to this life, you know, that could have an expression in the arts, which is just human. You know, I think, again, art is just a fancy word. It's just being human. And I'm very grateful that I do have a space where there's understanding for each other. You know, we celebrate each other's work, and every single day is a new day where there's a learning curve. But as Stage 32 would say, where I'm also a community leader, celebrate your wins. So every other day, there are opportunities to celebrate your wins. And I think Casey would really relate to that. And he's broadcasting his podcast every single week. It is fantastic.
Thank you. I
I'm
appreciate
a fan.
that. I appreciate that. I mean, yeah, to piggyback on what you're saying, Samita and Hussein, I think for me, and yeah, that's a recent project I started, was this podcast to encourage actors. And for a long time, I didn't start the podcast because I wanted some ideal in my mind of perfection. I think perfection is the art killer. Like, you got to don't focus on an outcome. in order to create, just like you say, instead, just put one foot in front of the other, just get something started. And the learning comes from the completion of every single project. So you will get better by doing the thing, and you're never ever going to reach perfection. Like there's no such thing. Like there's always going to be some, like for me as an actor, there's always going to be some line that I said, I'm like, God, I wish I said that some completely different way. There's no level of like true perfection. It doesn't exist. So yeah, that would be my piece of advice. Don't focus on an outcome, just do it.
Thank you, Casey.
I don't have any advice to give. I'm just taking it in.
I mean, listen,
the message that I'll take away overall will be, like, don't get in your own way.
Yeah.
Like, that's like part of the message there. And then, like, in the things that I'm trying to pursue now, it's like, don't get in your own way. And I get in my own way all the time with, the fears and insecurities that I'll have about my own work. And then Casey, like you said, about like perfectionism, like it's hard for me sometimes to stop doing something because I feel like, it's supposed to have this like end goal. It's supposed to look perfect in whatever way. So I'm just here to hear all of the advice and take that to heart. It's going to help me next week, when I get into the chapter.
I'm reminded of something that Hussein said much earlier when Evie asked a question about, how do you talk to critics or something like this, or what's your relationship with critics? Or I of course, I'm butchering Evie's brilliant question. And I'm going to butcher Hussein's brilliant response too, which is, or at least in my interpretation, is to hell with them, right? Because there is this notion that's, wait a second, what the hell have you done? Right. To Casey's point about perfection, listen, what everybody has said so far is quite brilliant. Do it. Number one, where's my finger? Do it. Number one. Number two, find good people to do it. But even something earlier that Casey had suggested, which is when he asked a question about the constraints of the 48-hour film festival, is acknowledge your constraints, because it's so honest. Just acknowledge those constraints and work within the constraints. Of course, none of us have a perfect setup. And so acknowledge them and make the work happen within those constraints, because that's the only thing that'll happen with it. And to echo Casey's just a recent point, which is there is no such thing as perfection, except it reminds me of an old philosophical argument for God's existence. Now, I'm not going to proselytize here or anything, but there's an argument that says something like, of course, God is perfect, therefore existence is an aspect of perfection. Therefore, if God is perfect, then he must exist. I don't want to get into it. But the one thing that I really like about that is the existence of a thing is its perfection. The existence of Casey's podcast right now is in itself a perfection. And guess what? Casey's podcast that exists today is way more perfect than the ideal podcast in his head. Hussein's and Joao's and Samita's films that exist are so much more perfect than the films that only exist in our heads. So
I love that.
Just do the thing, damn it.
Well said.
That's a great perspective. I'll take it.
Completely agree with that. Yeah.
I totally agree with
Thank
that.
you. Joao, when is your next film in Barcelona? I mean, are you coming to Lisbon tonight? I hope it's not too late.
I am actually. I'm in the middle of nature because I was in the countryside with my family, but we took a COVID test and everybody had it except me, so I was left in the middle of nature just with a bicycle. I'm struggling with Wi-Fi, but I'm definitely looking forward because I was the only person who didn't have COVID. So my mission now is to take the bicycle through the darkness, about 50 minutes to the train, and make it to Lisbon. But I'm very happy about it. It's a lovely evening, and I'm even more happy to be here talking with you. Like, it's been super surprising, and really, I was really deeply surprised that you come up with such nice ideas and questions, and for your interest in this movie, and all these discussions that go to philosophy and to God at the end. This really completes some work that anybody does. I feel really rewarded by us being here having this discussion, and by like each of the participations that we had from George, Casey, Evie, Andrea, and also Ian. and Samita, Husseini, of course. I feel like that's so much more than I could expect. You know, like I'm really happy about this reunion, and you know, I can't wait for the next opportunity to act because it's so rewarding. You know, and people like Samita, Husseini, and all the crew with this movie, it's really spectacular. It's like telling a story together. We all feel like we are acknowledged in a way. You know? So nice. So thank you, you guys.
Thank you, João. Thank you. Yeah, and when you come to Lisbon, you're going to come back with a lot of memories, and you're still connected from Barcelona, where you're going to do more and more films, and maybe all of us will end up there. Who knows? One day after the pandemic is over. Any final thoughts? I think João got frozen here.
Oh no.
Just want to say thank you, Samita, for having me, and Hussein and Joao, and you, Samita, for sharing your film. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so
I echo
much.
that. Thank you so much for letting us see that and participate in this. It was beautiful.
Yes, thank you so much for having us and letting us participate in this. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thanks to Samita for putting this all together, and obviously to George, Casey, Evie, Andrea, and also Ian for all your input as well. And yes, let's hope for the next one. Maybe you can see one of our short films by one of George. I'm very interested by that beautiful poster there, Totem Chaser. I'm going to Google it as soon as the meeting is ended.
That's a
You're not the only one.
That's a feature film that George is coming up with,
Yes.
and I want to screen his short film, which was in Tuscany.
Yeah.
Wow.
We'll
Wonderful.
definitely be interested in that next time. Yeah, I'm going to join Casey's podcast as well. I'm going to buy Evie's book. And
Yeah, I'm gonna. Yeah.
whatever you're doing, I'm interested.
I was going to ask, could you share your podcast name? Because I'm all about
Yeah,
podcasts.
please.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll put it in the chat here. It's
Thank you.
just my name. You know, good old branding, and then there we go.
It has a lot of life lessons every single week, and Casey has a talent for it, like so authentic, so unique. And
Thank you,
I
Samina.
feel very
Appreciate it.
meditative when I listen to it. And sometimes I just listen to a couple of them in a row.
I appreciate your support, Samina. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good luck, everybody, on all of your endeavors. I can't wait to see, where you're at the next time that we get to meet.
Yes, good luck.
Great.
Thanks. Good luck to all of you. It's wonderful to hear everybody's creative process. Thank you so much. I hope we
So
meet
stay
again.
tuned for all the updates. The next screening will be this film here that you see. You just see the poster right now. It's called A Leak. And we aim to release it on Valentine's Day. And then I'll let you know when I have a Q&A with my director, who's my partner. And he did this film all on his own. And
Wow.
I'm very excited to see how the conversation comes up in regards to this film. It's called A Leak. It'll be next month. And we have more openings for screenings in March, April. So we're going to be in touch. And I cannot wait to feature everybody.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Great. Sounds great.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Samina.
Have a wonderful
so
Sunday.
much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, you too. Thanks, guys. Great to meet you all. Bye now.
Good meeting you.
Bye.
See ya.